Hello and welcome to Entirely English and the video that turned my world upside down. I'm serious. You must be aware that we've done this series of videos comparing British, Europe and American food products. And we started with just the names of things, how vegetables had different names in different countries. Then we moved on to dairy products and we looked at the additives and all the regulations and how American stuff was full of emulsifiers and hormones and all that sort of stuff. And then when I was in the supermarket the other day, it occurred to me we'd missed out ice cream. And surely dairy products, ice cream, they go together. And this is going to be another opportunity to show how brilliant Britain and Europe are. And I was in for a rude awakening. So let's start with the video I took when I was in the supermarket looking at the ice cream. And then we'll come back and look at my research and how wrong I was. Cue video. I had forgotten this when we were doing the dairy video before. Ice cream. Ice cream. Obviously, the name comes from ice and cream. See if we can see the ingredients on this. Okay, quite a lot of ingredients in that. But now that is ice cream. We call it ice cream, as I said, because it's ice and cream. I mention this because one of my German friends calls these things ice creams. These are lollies, ice lollies or lollipops. All of these would come under the heading lolly. So they're made with just iced water. It gets confusing when you get to these sort of things, because they're like an upgrade of our old chalk ices, which we don't see very often. Basically a chalk ice on a stick. All right, so back home now, and we'll have a look and see what Gemini says. Is there a difference between British and American ice cream? Okay, so there I am, smug, having glanced at the ice cream, scanned the ingredients without really looking at them. And then I came back and asked Gemini about the differences in regulations and quality of ice cream. And that's when my heart fell. This video is going to be a bit choppy because I have to keep checking the information that I've found through Gemini and Wikipedia and Google searches, etc. But let's start off with that basic question. What is ice cream? Logically, it's frozen cream, iced cream, maybe with egg yolk mixed into it to give it more cohesion, maybe with some sugar to give it some more sweetness. But that should be it, right? Wrong. So let's look at America first, the USA, North America. In America, for a product to be called dairy ice cream, important word, dairy, they have strict binding laws from the FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration. Still can't get my head around food and drug together. Anyway, here's your burger, here's your cocaine. So according to the FDA regulations, to be labeled dairy ice cream, the product must contain at least 10% milk fat. 10%. If an American company tries to dip below that, mix in some vegetable fats, etc., then the FDA says you cannot label it dairy ice cream. You have to label it frozen dessert. Now, you'd assume, well, I would assume that in the UK and Britain, we would have stricter laws, 50% or something, dairy fat, milk fat, dairy produce. But no, our regulations said that ice cream had to have 5% dairy milk fat to be labeled ice cream. But in 2014, to be in line with European regulations, that restriction was abandoned. The only regulation we have now, sorry, let me correct myself. Before 2014, the regulation was you had to have 5% dairy milk fat to label a product ice cream. Not dairy ice cream, just ice cream. And to be in line with European regulations, that regulation was dropped. So now you don't have to have 5% milk product to label something as ice cream. It's deceptive, but that's the way it is with Europe. And again, I thought Europe would be stricter because, Italy is famous for its ice creams, and you'd have thought Italy would put pressure on Europe. Everybody had to be in line. But no, there's no strict regulations. So now you only need 5% fat of any source. So obviously, cheaper sources are vegetable oils, palm oils, coconut oils, those sort of things. So that is what a lot of the ice cream is made up of. Horrifying, isn't it? Again, like in the United States, we have this restriction on the word dairy. To label a product dairy ice cream, it has to contain 5% milk fat. Just 5%. It's ridiculously low. You don't have to take my word for it. Look at these two products. These are both Sainsbury's products. And the first one is their basic range of ice cream. And if you look at a list of ingredients, it's like a short novel. It's crazy. The first ingredient isn't cream. It's reconstituted skimmed milk, which means it's milk powder and water combined. Then you hit the fat source, or the cream part, and it's coconut oil. Not even dairy ice cream. It's coconut oil. And here's horrifying that if you look at the ingredients on the biscuit portion of this ice cream, you can see that part of the ingredients of that is palm oil. And we had some scares with palm oil a while ago where they said palm oil was carcinogenic. It caused cancer. We'll come back to that another time, maybe. Why do they use palm oil, though? Because it's a cheap binding fat. Not for health benefits, not because it tastes better, just because it's cheap and they can make more profit. And because they're using water, milk powder, vegetable oils instead of dairy products, look what they have to add to stop it separating. We have mono and diglycerides of fatty acids, guar gum, locust bean gum. It's literally an alchemist's playbook. But now look at the premium brand of Sainsbury's, what they call their Taste the Difference range. If we look at the back of that, the list of ingredients is absolutely mind-boggling in comparison. The entire ingredients list is 7 items. British cow's milk, 54%. British double cream, 27%. Demerara sugar, British skimmed cow's milk powder, 5%. Egg yolk, Madagascan vanilla extract and powder. That's it. Dairy product, some smaller additives like sugar and the flavoring, vanilla extract. No palm oil, no coconut fat, most importantly, 0 industrial emulsifiers, 0 stabilizers, 0 gums. Because it's a massive 27% real British double cream, it relies entirely on natural milk fat and the egg yolk to stay smooth. And here's the real kicker when we're comparing UK and US ice cream. Because this tastes the difference. I'm not promoting Sainsbury's. I don't like Sainsbury's. I hate their own branded products generally. But because their Taste the Difference range in the ice cream uses real dairy products, it would easily pass the FDA's 10% legal requirements. So it could be called dairy ice cream in America, just as it would be here. But if they tried to sell the other ice cream, the basic brand with all those additives in America, the Americans would force them to label it frozen dessert, not ice cream, not dairy ice cream, definitely, because it's just not. And so this brings us to another big difference, not in America, UK, but in the UK ice cream products itself, how much food you're actually buying. Now, the labels are completely clear if you know what you're looking at. Now, yeah, I bought a tub of Wall's soft scoop ice cream, and the labeling is clear. On the back there, you should be able to see. It says, what does it say? 792 grams. That's the weight of this pack. But if you look at the Taste the Difference tub, I didn't buy one of those because it's too damn expensive for me. It's a lot smaller. It's more expensive, but it's a lot smaller. But if you look at the weight, it's clearly labeled as 341 grams. why is there a difference? This tub is so much bigger. You might think with this Walls ice cream, you're getting maybe 4 times the amount because of the dimensions. When you look at the actual weights, you're getting just over 2, nearly 2.5 times the amount in the soft scoop compared to the real cream ice cream. Why? Because the cheap ice cream, generally your soft scoop, relies on what they call overrun, which is just a fancy term, a deceptive term manufacturers use to disguise the fact that because this is soft scoop, a great portion of this volume is air. The ice cream is whipped with air. Volume is bigger. The weight is not that much bigger than the solid, proper ice cream because you're buying air. So if you're looking at ice creams, check the weights. Don't just look and say, oh, well, that's a big tub. Let's buy that one. It's a bargain. You might be just buying air. What about the flavors then? What about something like mint choc chip? You have the same product in America and in Britain. Is there a difference there? Well, yes, there is. Here we have a paradox. Now, because US ice cream is legally forced to use real dairy products, it is structurally and naturally stable emulsion, which means that the ice cream in America has fewer additives, right? We covered that, we looked at the ingredients. Where the US does go crazy with additives is in the appearance of the ice cream. So with sugars and coloring. If you pull up a Google image of an American mint choc chip ice cream, mint ice cream of any kind, you will get this vibrant, radioactive neon green sort of color. That's because they've used heavy doses of yellow number 5 and blue number 1 food dyes. In the UK, we have regulations that demand prominent warning labels on foods containing certain food dyes because those food dyes may have adverse effects on children, people with ill health. So because no brand wants to have that label on its product, this may cause adverse effects to your children. They tend to avoid it. Oh, look there. Here's a nice one. It's really cheap. There's lots of cream and it will make our children go crazy. Let's buy this. People won't do that. So the food industry tries to avoid those things. So our mint ice cream may be white, or to give it that identification as mint, there might be a subtle green addition from a chlorophyll or some natural plant coloring, just to give it that identifying feature of mint is green. But essentially, food coloring, sugars aside, this is a round that goes to America. Ding, ding. USA! USA! Yeah. So I would like to try some American ice cream. I'm just never going to go there. But yeah, this was a surprise to me. If you're from Europe, was it a surprise for you as well that our regulations, the European Union regulations, state that we don't have to have much dairy products in our ice cream? So a takeaway from this, if a product says dairy ice cream on it, you are guaranteed that it's going to have over 10% milk product fats. Genuine milk. Even if it is packed with high fructose corn syrup, artificial dyes. The ice cream itself, the core of it, is real ice cream. If you're in Britain or Europe, don't let our food regulations fool you. Look at the back of the product. Look at the ingredients. Are you buying ice cream or are you buying some vegetable oil whipped up with other products to give it an ice cream appearance? I mean, this is our soft scoop ice cream. It is soft. Let's take a bit. It's cold. Really, no bias. All I can taste from that, excuse me, all I can taste with that is the vanilla flavoring. There's no sense of ice cream at all. Occasionally we have an ice cream van come round here. I don't know if you're familiar with those little vans that drive around, sell ice creams. You must have seen them. Maybe I'll do a little addendum here when I go and buy an ice cream from there because we've had the weather for it. And we can have a look at what's on sale. Oh, that's interesting. Did they have the ingredients? And it's like, a lifetime since I went to an ice cream van. But yeah, maybe that would be an interesting little short to add on to this. But yeah, America, if it says ice cream, it is ice cream. In Britain, if it says ice cream, check the ingredients. If it says dairy ice cream, you're pretty safe. Okay, mind blown? Mine was. So there we are, a point to America. If you have any comments on this, any thoughts, pop them below. Do like, subscribe, follow, whatever you like. Okay, I hope you come back for the next video. See you then. Bye-bye.